In this lesson, we're going to talk about the collection component. The collection component can be set up in two modes, a kiosk mode and a slideshow mode. In slideshow mode, you can simply drag and drop a whole bunch of items. Now these items can be resources such as video files or images or Swift animations, or they can also be scenes that you've pre-built, and the collection is going to cycle from one item to the next. You can set the duration for all the items, or you can set the duration for each item individually. So if you're not necessarily a fan of a visual timeline, you can use the collection simply by dragging and dropping items to it, and the collection will cycle through these items. Now the second mode would be the kiosk mode. With the kiosk mode, you can actually set the collection to accept touch or mouse clicks, and with it you can direct each click to a particular scene or a particular resource. So you can add interactivity to your presentation using the collection. And so the collection component is a great tool to create an interactive presentation that's going to run on mobile devices or tablets such as the iPad or an Android device. And so we will be adding a lot of enhanced functionality to the collection component in the upcoming releases. So here in the Slideshow Studio, let's first talk about the collection using the slideshow mode. So we'll go ahead and make a little bit more room here and switch over here to the components, and under the components we'll drag over the collection to the timeline. Double click to load up its properties, and over here under its properties you can see that right now by default it's set to slideshow mode, and so the default duration is actually 10 seconds. So let's go ahead and change the default duration to maybe 3 seconds and then switch over to the items. And here in the items I'm actually going to switch over now to my resources and go ahead and drag a few resources over to the items. Veggie burger and a wrap and also an ice cream and a chicken salad and cereal. So a whole bunch of food products, and you can see how the collection is cycling through all these products. Now if I wanted to change the default duration, maybe have the wrap actually play for 10 seconds, I can double click here and put 10 seconds, and you'll see that when it gets to the wrap it'll actually stick around for 10 seconds like it is now, and then switch into the next item, the ice cream. And so the collection using the slideshow is just a simple way to cycle through items. Now the great thing here is that we can also mix into the item list scenes. So let's go ahead and add the scene now to the item list. So we'll go over here to the scenes, select this scene we have here. Let's actually go ahead and edit it. So click right here and we'll add a label. Called burger. Change the fonts. Make the fonts a little bit bigger. And go ahead and add also an image. And switch back to our timeline. Go back to the collection. And now drag this new scene to be just after the cereal. And here we're not going to use the default 3 seconds. We'll actually go ahead and put 5 seconds. And let it play through. And so now it's playing the scene just like the rest of the items. And so just to recap, the collection is just a simple tool that allows you to cycle through items. These items can be both resources and scenes. You can set the duration at the item level, and also you can set a default duration. Next, we're going to talk about a more advanced functionality of the collection. We're going to visit the kiosk mode. And with the kiosk mode, you can actually use your finger or mouse clicks to interact with the collection and have it switch to other items or other scenes. So let's go ahead and delete the collection over here from the timeline because we are going to use the scenes this time. So we'll switch over here to the scenes, right here, the scene editor. And let's go ahead and create a new scene. We'll call this scene our collection scene. So let's go ahead and just give it a name. Collection scene. Press enter. Next, we're going to add 3 more blank scenes. Map scene. We'll go ahead and call this scene our library. scene, and go ahead and create another scene and call it our about scene. Next, we'll switch over here to the map scene and look for our map resource. Drag and drop it. And this is going to be a wayfinding kiosk. Make our scene a little bit bigger. Zoom out a little bit. Next, we're going to go ahead and over here and switch the library scene and add some more information. Put a label. Just call this our library. We're just creating a basic scene just like this. And now we'll go ahead and switch to the about scene and add some text here as well. I'll just go ahead and paste in some text just like this. Next, we'll switch back to the collection scene and embed the collection component inside the collection scene. We'll actually go ahead and set the collection scene to be a little bit bigger, and I'll go ahead and select the collection again and also make that a little bit bigger as well. Next, we'll switch over here to the collection tab now that the collection component is selected, and we'll switch from here from the slideshow to the kiosk mode. And as soon as I do that, I have an extra item right here called events, so I can set both the items and the events. So the items, just like before, I'm going to go ahead and associate all the scenes that I want to have listed in my collection. So I'll switch over here to scenes, and I'll switch and put in my map scene as well as my library scene and my about scene. Let's go ahead and save our configuration so it loads everything. And as soon as I save, I can see my collection that's loaded with my first scene, the map scene. Next, what I want to do is I want to put a couple of labels here on top. So I'll switch to components and put a label right here and put in about the library. Change the fonts. And so what I'd like to set up is that when a person touches the about library label, it will actually show us the about scene information. So while the about library is selected, the label, I'm going to switch over here to the definition. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it the about library and make sure that this label is interactive. Next, we'll switch back to the collection, selecting it right here from the tree. Switch to the collection tab and give each scene a unique page name. So we'll just call it page 2 and page 3. And now what we need to do is associate an actual touch event with the about library label. So what we'll do here under the collection tab, we'll switch over to events, click on the plus sign to add a new event, and notice that we have this target icon, so we'll drag it, and as soon as I hover over the about library label, you see that it becomes selected, and that's because we made the label an interactive object. So I'm going to go ahead and let go, and here we can see that now this event is associated with the about library label. Next, I want to go ahead and put a command or an action so we know exactly what's going to happen once you click on it. So we'll select from the drop down selected page, go ahead and make a little bit more room here, and again, just like before, we're going to hold the mouse and drag this icon, and as soon as I do that, you'll see that the items accordion tab is going to open up, and I'll go ahead and select the about scene, the P3, and let go, and now P3 is selected. So let's go ahead and test this out and see how well it works. So we'll switch over here to the timelines, go to my scenes, and look for my collection scene, drag and drop that to the first channel, double click to load up its properties, and you see that as soon as I click on it, I get the About Library scene right here. So again, let's go ahead and demo it one more time. Double click the collection scene, and as soon as I click on the object right here, go ahead and zoom out a little bit, you see that we get the About Library information. So now that it's working, I want to go ahead and set up the map so when somebody touches the library on the map, he gets the actual operating hours for the library. So we'll go ahead and switch over here to the map scene that resides inside our collection. And now what we'll do is we'll switch over here to the resources, and we're going to look for this image called library. This is just a regular image. We'll go ahead and drag and drop it, and we'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit and put the library image right here in this spot. So somebody clicks on that, he will get information for the library. And while it's selected under its properties, we're going to want to set it to be also under the definition an interactive item. I'm going to call this our library button and press enter. Next, we'll switch back to our collection scene. And now under our collection scene, we need to go ahead and associate again another event for the collection. So we'll select the collection and again zoom out a little bit and make sure that we associate an event for the library button. So what we're going to do is over here on the collection, just like before, click on the plus sign to add another event, and this time we're going to manually enter library button. So we're not going to use this target icon like before, because now this library button is actually embedded inside the scene, and so we can't use this button like before, so we actually have to manually type in library button and set the selected page just like before, and now associate the page and select our library scene. Now let's go ahead and test this and see how it works. So again, switch back to the timeline, double click the collection scene, zoom in a little bit, and as soon as we click on the library button, we get the operating hours. Now in our example, we only use the selected page, but of course you can also set always to go back to the first page, previous page, next page, and last page. And if you want to find out the order of the pages, just switch to the items and you can see exactly the order of the pages that you're referring to. So right now, if you are in the library scene and you set, for example, the next page, it's always going to go to page 3. If you'll do the first page, regardless of where you are at the list level, you're always going to jump back to page 1. So of course you can always use these other events as well. And one last thing that I wanted to mention is that you can also create nested collections. So if I switch back to the library scene, I can, for example, over here put another collection, and I can create a navigation system within this page. So the system can really become very elaborate, and you can create pages within pages that are all navigatable. So as you can see, the collection is a very versatile tool. The simpler version of it would be the, again, slideshow, where you just kind of cycle through items, and the kiosk mode allows you to really create an interactive system that can run on the iPads and tablets and really anywhere you like. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any questions, be sure to speak to our support team.